Why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about where you are?
I'm in my studio in the Bronx, which is not too far from my house. So I can kind of self isolate while I walk over or drive over. The space is about 20 by 18 feet. It's a big cube, basically. There's no natural light, as you can probably tell from the lighting. Um, and It's inside of a three-story mixed-use studio building. So next door, I don't know if you can kind of overhear it, but I have like a TV station that has a signal out to the Dominican Republic. And then we have like a screen print shop down the hall. There's a music studio upstairs and other artists. So it's a pretty nice crowd, mixed crowd. Everything's closed around me. The few shops that we had for coffee or takeout, a lot of places are shut down. Some places are slowly coming back up to do takeout and delivery. But around here, it's pretty industrial. There was one diner that has since been closed because there's no clientele. Yeah, so around here, it's pretty quiet.
Tell us a little bit about what you're working on, if you would.
Right now, I've been kind of going between a few different ideas. I've been kind of stepping back into working with wax paper and carbon paper and thinking about how to get back into this method of working that involved this dressmaker paper that I've done, that I've worked with in the past, that stems from my mom's career as a seamstress. It's basically a large sheet of paper that's used to do tracings on fabric. And what I've been doing is using that material to create drawings. So the piece you see behind me is actually one that I'm working on right now, using just white transfer paper and carbon paper. Yeah. The other project that I'm working on is connected to using muslin as the substrate for the pieces. And so I'm thinking about ways to getting the muslin to wrap around panels so I can start developing pieces that are tiled and can branch out into bigger productions or bigger wall size pieces, if you will. That's a new process that I'm thinking about expanding upon. I like the idea of being able to have the work function around a panel with something more stable so that I can function freely in terms of the material being tiled together, and also not have to worry about the kind of people touching it or getting damage in transportation or something like that. I like the effect of it being more sculptural in a sense because it's on muslin. And so to read more like a textile piece, hopefully. Because the pattern paper that I'm collecting is coming from existing designs. And so when I get to overlay them without any kind of context, they start resembling these plans of like airports or large cities. And so I'm really appreciating that and thinking about ways of expanding upon it. So I think maybe the connotation of it is leading me to think about planning like in a very large scale, kind of like an architecture plan or something. Yeah.
What's the tactile quality of working on the pattern paper versus the muslin?
It really ranges, and I think I noticed this when I had an assistant last year over the summer. I'm used to it now. I'm really familiar from going to something that requires a lot of careful consideration to something a bit more immediate, maybe rough. That I need to be flexible within the materials that I use for the pieces. So sometimes when I'm working with gold leaf or pattern paper requires a delicate sensibility, being mindful of my breath even so that things don't blow away. And time is much longer. That's something that's come up a lot more now that I have time in the studio, is realizing that to hold that space, to work at that sensibility requires a tremendous amount of discipline, or at least like willingness to stay there for that long period of time.
I think everyone appreciates a little optimism from others right now. So maybe we could wrap up by you talking about what you're most excited about in your work, what you're most optimistic about at the moment.
I think, let's see, let me find an answer that's optimistic. One thing that has been helpful actually, and I've been wanting, this is away from the studio, but I think it has something to do with the practice now or how I'm envisioning it moving forward, is that I've been wanting to redesign my website for a long time. And I was finally able to kind of talk to my nephew, who's really into design and animation, and he's redesigning it for me. And so that's put me into a process of like looking back at the things that I've done and what has been like always there within the work, and also kind of bringing him into that space, you know, even just as a passive viewer. And so that's been really exciting, kind of looking through the trajectory of the work, seeing that the tone of it has slowly matured a little bit, developed over time, but has been consistent with thinking about the audience of people that are often unrecognized or overlooked, and you know, hoping that I can continue that moving forward. So and I don't know, I wouldn't say that, I mean, not that anyone is naming it as nostalgic, but I've been thinking about this idea of nostalgia possibly as a form of reconnecting with, you know, songs from the past even that have kept you motivated and kept you going. Like, you know, you and I, we were joking about music, and I was joking about listening to Stevie Wonder's songs in the key of life, and just realizing that those are the spaces that I was trying to articulate and wanting to emulate. So it's been nice to kind of go back and think about that, and even share that, even if it's just with my nephew for now, you know.
How old is your nephew?
He's 17.
That I can't wait to see this site. It seems like a really good time to be doing that, you know.
In a way, it's, you know, I'm sure everybody's been reading a lot of different things about productivity and how to take this grieving process. And one thing that's been helpful to understand is that, you know, the production aspect of it has been something that I've been very conscious of for a long time. And just to be able to kind of recognize that we've been doing a lot of the work that we are on pause from right now, and that maybe it's time to focus on something else, maybe focusing on something inward or focusing on a new subject.